Hello there, welcome to part 8 of the Dwarfs campaign Abridged, where last time we shot a lot of skeletons. We absolutely annihilated most of the Tomb Kings in one-sided battles. We were able to take out their faction after a bunch of shenanigans trying to raise all of their settlements, and then I replaced my army and took it out for a spin against some other Tomb Kings. This time they have a big advantage. I decided to ignore that, thinking we'll probably just do the usual to them. We had a nice battlefield that I couldn't quite use to its full capacity. We had a great deployment zone on top of this hill facing the enemy, but because some of the enemy's reinforcements were spawning on the hill as well, I decided not to use it. We could though get this really great corner camp where we're protected on our left side by some cliffs, so we're really tucked in here, we're unflankable. That's not going to make too much difference though, because of these fellows, the Ushabti great bows. It's just an archer unit, nothing too much to fear in theory, but it does have good damage, about 200 missile strength. Well, that's about the same damage as us. In practice though, it's extremely powerful, especially against our bunched together formations, because the arrows have area of effect damage. We've already lost half of our elite unit on the end of the line there, and it's not even the only one getting shot. And this is where this battle is going to unravel, as these arrows are just going to fall continuously. Those archers are out of our range, so we can't do anything about it. They're also slightly behind a hill, so we probably can't see them with our gunners. And they're just killing us. With 3 stacks of troops supporting them, we can't exactly go out and do anything about that, especially if we want to stand still and keep shooting to do the normal plan. Here comes the enemy's commander. He's not going to last very long, but neither are we. We've lost several of our holding units before the enemy's main melee attacks even started, meaning if they attack now, we'll be fighting them with our gunners, and it's the gunners that need to do the killing. Overall, trouble, big trouble, and it's happening very fast as well. Something else is happening back there, but we're going to ignore whatever that was. It's the archers that are causing the issue. Some of them aren't even firing, that's nice of them, but the ones that are doing the numbers. They can take out our guys at the back as well. There's really no defense against this. We need some sort of heavy cavalry type unit to go out and fight archers at the back for us. As it stands though, they're annihilating us. Down goes our Greybeard's Prospector elite gun unit. We've also lost most of our front line at this stage, and what remains is routing. We're going to withdraw at this stage in the battle. I wanted to escape before the battle actually got started, because it's extremely likely we're going to get annihilated here, so I thought let's try and save some units. Handily we can withdraw right off the map beside us, so it doesn't take us long to escape, and that's great because we're getting hit by more of those arrows on the way out. There we go then, an absolute disaster. We've lost more than half of our army in this engagement, and we barely did anything to the enemy army. In fact, the battle barely started. If they hadn't advanced their army at all, they would have done even better than they did there. Most of our units are still alive, all but one, so that's good. But check out the damage on the enemy army. They basically didn't do anything to us, apart from those archers who did everything to us. We've encountered the counter to our army. It's just a longer range, even more powerful ranged unit that can shoot us freely. I'm guessing loads of artillery would present the same problem, but the AI maybe doesn't recruit loads of artillery in the same way as they might recruit loads of very powerful archers. So that's that. Or is it? There is more to this, because now it's their turn. They can come at us and engage us again. Fortunately, they don't come at us with everything, they just bring the stack with the good archers. So now we have a balanced engagement on a flat field against them. Now that we know these guys are going to kill us, we can try and plan around this. I realized there are 2 things we can do: engage them as soon as possible, and spread our units out and have them be in lines rather than blocks, because as mentioned on the tooltip here, they do splash damage, so our squares were probably taking more damage than they really could have been if they were in lines. This leads to this plan. We're going to just charge forwards, a very unusual plan for our army so far in this campaign. Aldor can charge quite quickly on his tank and go towards some of the enemy's archers on the flank. But of course, as we charge, we're going to get hit a bit. It's definitely doing less damage than before being in these single lines, at least it appears to be. I figure their area of effect is somewhat column-shaped because the arrow goes through multiple models, or something like that. Now my plan on the right didn't work because something got in front of the archers, and that's that really. Actually getting them into melee is going to be virtually impossible, but moving forwards is still useful because it brings us into gunnery range. We can attack them with our rifles and also our torpedo launchers as well. We've got the brimstone torpedoes in this army, which have pretty good range, so they can shoot further than the rifles and over the top of everything to hit those archers at the back. We've got some potential to actually damage them. However, in the meantime, the main fight's starting and we don't have that many troops left. I quickly formed our boxes before the enemy arrived so we can do the usual thing, but we haven't done enough damage to these archers to really commit to that. One issue we have is that these torpedo launchers, while powerful and long range, can't hit these guys. All the shots are just flying past them. Unfortunate. Also, those torpedoes, they're not torpedoes in the explosive sense. They're just a straight up rock projectiles. There's no area of effect damage on them. They're not exploding and they're not even knocking the enemy down to stop them from firing. So while it seemed like a good idea at the time, it's actually not really coming to anything. Those torpedoes have been disappointing so far. Probably would have been better to keep an overpowered scout unit in their place instead. And what happens is everything just goes wrong in the traditional sense, even without those archers there. We're just overwhelmed and we don't have many troops left, so we can't output much damage even though we are overpowered. And it all starts to go wrong as they break through and start killing us. This brings us to this result. Everything is dead. There we have it. Well, only dead in the Warhammer sense, because all of our heroes are immortal, regiments of renown are immortal, and normal units, well, we can just summon up some more at any time. So everything we lost will come back. It's just a matter of time. Handily, this enemy faction has a faction trait. I can't remember what it was called, but they're extra defensive, essentially. They're just trying to defend their pyramid. And that's going to stop them from coming to follow up on that victory and take any of our territory or anything like that. Well, I didn't know that at first. I thought they might come out and kill us. So I started putting some more troops together near the front line, but the enemy just stood absolutely still after this and did nothing. So we do have as much time as we need. After like 10 turns or so, all of our heroes will be back. We can start rebuilding the army and maybe think about trying again. While we wait for that, time to get killed a little bit because those beastmen I mentioned earlier eventually declare war on me. They were just in my territory raiding but not at war. They finally decided to just go for it. They could have done this ages ago. They've got a decent force for taking Zandri, although maybe we could win this in a manual resolve. It's the kind of fight like the one I did against the Orcs right back at the beginning. It seems like we might be able to pull something off, but then if they just came at us from all sides, we probably wouldn't. So we're just going to skip that one and say we've lost. We've got so much money, we definitely need to lose some settlements right now to balance things out. Here's Oldor back to life and healthy as ever. We'll start making our new army then. What I had hoped I could do is construct the final level of all the buildings before this happened and go for an endgame army. Unfortunately, we don't have enough population in the Atalan Mountains, our central province, to get level 5 towns. So we're going to be missing out on the best units. The army I made is roughly the same as the army I just lost earlier. In the meantime, another Beastman attack, this time at Bel Aliad. Pretty much the same situation as before. Unfortunately, both Zandri and Bel Aliad don't have the level 3 garrison building, so no walls. A few of my minor settlements are walled off. I remember I destroyed some of the walls though here and there to make more space for money buildings, thinking I'm not going to get attacked at places like Bel Aliad anymore. Well, we are. After that, I finally deployed our secondary army to go and run after the Beastmen. That's going to be a long chase because they don't have to fight us. They can just keep marauding around. Maybe we'll catch them eventually. Well, we didn't catch them before they attacked Koffa on the western coast. Again, we only have a small garrison with no garrison building. So we lose another battle and another settlement. This is flashbacks to early in the campaign where everything is suddenly getting raised all over the place. Only this time it doesn't really matter at all because we have infinite money. Handily, the Bray herd, following the Beastmen around, decided to go off on its own to attack my secondary army, and it was a suicide attack by the looks of things. We absolutely stomped them. That gets them out of the way. Not that the Bray herd actually did anything, it's all the main herd doing the work. Later still, Uldor is now moving back to the front line with the Black Pyramid of Nagash, and for this attack we're going to have a secondary army, the one I built thinking they might attack me. I'll use them to follow up and have some more reinforcements. I didn't otherwise have any particular plan to deal with the Ushabti archers, who can still kill us. We've got pretty much the same composition as before. I thought maybe it will just go better somehow. We'll look at that in a second. First, we've got an ambush to deal with, because the Beastman main horde comes back and attacks my secondary army using their ambush ability. We probably have an advantage, but we can't tell, so for safety we have to try this manually. At first I can't really see where the enemy are. Lots of the Beastman units can hide in the open, even in the desert, so while it looks like they're obviously right here, I wasn't sure where most of their stuff was. Their Cygor artillery, quote unquote, doing some damage there. That's why I started deploying my force to be partially facing the other direction, thinking half their army might be over there. It was only until they were right in front of us that it became obvious they're all coming from one side. And here are those explosive bullets I mentioned earlier. We've completed that research. That means our bullets now have area of effect damage and a knockback effect as well, making them absolutely devastating. It's not quite as good as it looks, as with most things in Warhammer. I looked up the stats and the explosive damage is like 10 to 15% of the base damage applied as area of effect. So it doesn't make the shots that much more powerful, but 10 to 15% more damage on the units around the ones being hit is useful. It probably doesn't have a very big area. Well, who knows how good this is. The point is, it looks good. It's much more explosive. There's an obvious downside to this that became quite apparent in this battle. The area of effect damage is going to affect my legionaries when we're doing things like this and locking the enemy into melee, because often the shots are hitting the enemies at the front of their group, who are right in front of my troops as well. They're going to be even more sacrificial units out there in front at this stage, and there's nothing we can do about that because it's not like an ability, it just universally replaces your bullets with explosives. We can't turn them off once the enemy get close or anything like that. Still having trouble with that Cygor by the looks of things. At least the explosives right here are useful. We can shoot this Minotaur, damage it, and also damage some of the foot soldiers around it with the splash damage. Probably. Anyway, those Minotaurs, they seem to remember, are very good. I think when the Beastmen first came out, the meta was all Minotaurs. They were that good of a unit, you can just spam them against everything. Well, they're going to be causing us some issues in this fight, but everything's going to be exploding at the same time, which will help out. We're able to win at the back of the columns, and now we're going to focus on the front. A couple of units are chasing off enemy archers just to take them out of the fight for now. And then it comes down to a massive explosion fest, where surely we're damaging our own side a whole bunch. Not sure if the explosion damage pierces armor or something, so we might be able to resist this on our legionaries. Maybe not. I guess it's killing the enemy a bit more though. Overall, I'm not entirely convinced that taking explosive shot will actually make us more powerful, because the damage done to us at the same time might offset the extra damage we're doing to the enemy. We'll have to see. The point is, it's flashier, so that's pretty cool. There's one more possible advantage, which is that when you attack enemies that are fleeing, like these guys, the fact it constantly knocks them back and knocks them over means the unit on average flees slower because they keep stopping to get back up, and we might get some more shots off. So we're going to be marginally more effective at attacking routing enemies, which is one of our big weaknesses. I was looking here on these stats to see is there any way to tell how much friendly fire damage I've done. I don't think there is. If you add up all the kills that the enemy got on the right to how many losses we took, I'm sure we killed some of our own troops. So this is going to be a double-edged sword. Well, it's still a sword. We can use it for stuff. Looks like that battle was fine, although we'll still have to hunt down the Beastmen and attack them again. It's really going to be up to them to let us fight them. They can run away forever if they want. Extra annoying. As for Uldor, I'm going to try an ambush and bait plan. The main force will be in an ambush position on the road. Then our backup army is going into the equivalent of raiding stance, the mining stance, to draw the enemy away from their settlement. I thought they might not take it because they want to defend so much, but they do come out. However, they're coming out because they've seen Uldor. That means we will not be getting an ambush. This could have allowed me to actually get those archers into melee really fast and avoid issues. Instead, it's a straight up field battle. The balance bar is even, so that's promising. but it doesn't mean anything if they're just going to kill us at range. However, I saw the map and realized we might be able to do something with this, because it has some terrain features, those 2 hills on either side of our deployment zone, with cliffs as well. We can use those to break line of sight and force the archers to come closer to us, and then maybe we can do something with that. With that in mind, here we are on the battlefield. Our reinforcements handily deploy into a forest, so they're completely hidden, and I can choose when to reveal them. The main force is supposedly hidden behind this hill, the idea being they'll have to come over the hill to shoot us, then they'll be pretty close to us. The main downside to this plan is that it doesn't work, and that's always a downside, because they can come more around the hill than over it, and the AI does do that. And by shooting around the shallower parts of the hill, they start killing us fast. I then make a big mistake. I tried to pull back further behind the hill to be more hidden, but I accidentally gave the order as a walk rather than a run, and we took a load of damage gradually moving away from the enemy, and we missed opportunities to be firing back. Eventually we get into formation, and things get started. As usual, they're going to come at us with their commander just on his own out front, so fine, we again assassinate their commander immediately. Always a boon against an undead faction. They've got another one of these things, these sphinxes, coming at us. This one's going to be a bit weaker and has roughly the same amount of luck as the first one. I suppose it gets closer to us, but it also dies without doing any damage. That's a couple of powerful units out of the running, but they're not the ones I'm concerned about. We're already being hit by those arrows. They're going for our most elite units specifically, some good targeting from those archers. I now, though, can target them. They have got close enough to me that they're within rifle range now that they're shooting, so we can shoot back for the entirety of the battle. And that's that. We just leave the units at the back of our formation, shooting at them as best we can. The torpedoes as well are trying to do their thing, but missing in a similar fashion to what we saw before. And our frontline units with the blunderbusses will shoot down the approaching skeletons. The blunderbusses, by the way, don't have that explosive shot ability. It only affects certain gun types by the looks of things. As for our secondary army, they're going to stand near the enemy's reinforcements and just be a distraction. We don't have an ideal formation, we're outflanked immediately. Our artillery at the back, which didn't catch up in time, is being engaged. Pretty nasty, but it doesn't matter so much what's happening over there, it is just a distraction for now. There's the summon on our artillery, that's unfortunate. We're not going to try and do anything about that, because we're focusing all of our fire forwards. We've already lost quite a lot of stuff. Our Thane has held off some Ushabti on the right flank, taking a bunch of damage along the way. But most importantly, we have done some serious damage to those archers. Just shooting them a lot is getting somewhere. They're still killing us a lot, but they're not going to get through the vast majority of their ammo, so the massive potential they have to wipe us out is fading away. Plus, we didn't really take that much pressure from everything else charging in front of us, so while they could have overwhelmed us and charged through the big gaps in our line to stop us shooting, they weren't able to do that, perhaps because our secondary army has distracted so much of the enemy's reinforcement pool. So we have all of these damaged half-dead units that are banding together. They're standing on top of each other because there's lots of impassable terrain just on my left. So we're sort of stuck on top of each other, going around an invisible corner here. Well, it's still working out. The enemy have the same problem, and as they're bunched together, our stone melters are blowing them up with their anti-everything flamethrowers. And here we see the last of those archers getting cut down. They kept moving about as well, which helped us out. They weren't shooting too much during this fight. And with them being taken out, we can breathe a sigh of relief, because everything else on the field isn't too much to worry about. The second army is in a state of chaos, really. There's just stuff everywhere. They're attacking our rear lines. We don't have our neat checkerboard formation going on. I had considered pulling this entire army into the woods and maybe off the map entirely, because we don't really need them to be here dying right now anymore. I ended up kind of half withdrawing and then reforming to keep shooting at the enemy. Meanwhile, the first army is finishing its portion of enemies. This last group coming around the hill has no chance. They're just being hit by absolutely everything all at once. The stone melters are enough to kill them on their own, I think. All of the shooting just makes it flashier. You might also have seen some satchel charges being thrown into the mix. That's a new regiment of renown I've used. They can throw satchel charges, big grenades effectively, really far, so they're just being used as a ranged unit, even though I think they're supposed to be a melee unit. That all works out. Then, as for the second army, while it's in a state of disarray, we're going to get away with this now. We've still got a few units outside of the battle shooting in and doing big damage, and because the enemy have lost like 2 stacks, or 1 or a bit stacks really, fighting our first army, the army losses are mounting, and everything that's left here will start losing all of their health. And of course, the first army will be coming over to help. I don't think they arrived or did anything particularly meaningful, because the damage from the disintegration did all of the work for us. Down they go. We have to fight them a bit more because it takes a long time to kill them. I really should have just run away at this point, because we're likely taking unnecessary damage shooting explosive shot into melees where our troops are also there. Well, here's the eventual result we get to. Everything on the enemy side dead, of course. Our side relatively alive. We did take some serious casualties, but not full unit casualties, and some units are absolutely fine. I was surprised by how well the torpedoes did after slagging them off earlier. While they don't explode and they miss a lot, I think when you shoot them into infantry, the rock just kind of goes through all of their ranks at once and grabs multiple kills. So they've somehow picked up loads of kills shooting into massed skeletons. Maybe that's what they're good for. I was trying to use them more surgically. I think just firing into the throngs is probably a better idea, just using them like our gun units. Well, we'll try them out some more. For now, we need to go on and keep fighting the skeletons to take down their pyramid, and there are certainly going to be some more challenges involved in that, as we shall see in the next part.